The cold morning air bit at Jake's face as he stood outside the old abandoned garage on the edge of Mill Creek, Ohio. His clothes were worn thin, and his boots had holes that let in the damp ground. He looked tired, like someone who had been fighting a long, silent battle with life. Suddenly, the sound of a familiar car engine broke the quiet. His younger sister Mia pulled up in her beat-up Honda, dust rising behind her tires. She stepped out quickly and walked straight toward him. Without saying a word at first, Mia wrapped her arms around Jake in a strong, tight hug. She held him close, squeezing hard like she was afraid he might disappear if she let go. Jake could feel her shoulders shaking slightly. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The hug was warm and full of worry, the kind only a sister who truly cares can give. Mia finally pulled back just enough to look at his face. Her eyes were wet with tears. "Jake, this has gone on long enough," she said, her voice cracking. "You've been sleeping inside this dirty old garage for 3 weeks now. Come home with me, please. Mom and I are so worried about you." Jake looked down at the cracked concrete under his feet. He gently placed his hands on her shoulders and gave a small, tired smile. "I know you're scared for me, Mia. I see it. But I can't come back yet. Not like this. I need to stand on my own 2 feet again. If I go home now, I'll just feel like a failure all over again." Mia shook her head, still holding onto his jacket. "You're not a failure. Jake, you lost your job, your apartment. Everything happened so fast. But sleeping here, it's not safe. What if something happens to you?" Jake took a slow breath and looked toward the dark opening of the garage, where he had been laying his sleeping bag every night. For a second, a shadow of doubt crossed his face. He wondered if he was making the biggest mistake of his life by staying. The uncertainty hung heavy in the air between them. Mia gave him one last tight hug, even stronger than the first, pressing her face into his shoulder. "Promise me you'll be careful," she whispered. "I can't lose you too." She finally let go, wiped her tears, and walked back to her car. As she drove away, Jake stood there alone, watching the car disappear down the empty road. The garage waited behind him like a silent reminder of how far he had fallen. Little did he know that inside those dusty walls, something unexpected was waiting, something that would quietly begin to change everything. The next morning, Jake woke up to the sound of rain tapping on the old metal roof of the garage. His back ached from sleeping on the hard concrete floor again. He sat up slowly, rubbed his eyes, and looked around at the mess surrounding him. Broken tools, old tires, and piles of junk covered almost every corner. If he was going to stay here, he needed to make the place at least a little livable. With a deep sigh, he started moving things around, trying to clear some space. As he dragged a heavy, dusty tarp from the far corner, something caught his eye. Underneath it sat an old, rusted dirt bike. The paint was faded and chipped, the tires were flat, and the engine looked completely dead. Jake stared at it for a long moment. He had ridden dirt bikes as a teenager, back when life felt simpler and full of possibilities. This one looked like it had been forgotten for years. Curiosity got the better of him. He wiped some dirt off the frame and noticed a small handwritten note still taped to the handlebar. It had the previous owner's phone number. Jake hesitated, then used his cracked phone to call the number. After a few rings, an old man answered with a rough voice. Jake explained where he was and asked about the bike. The man laughed at first, saying he had left it there almost 6 years ago and never came back for it. After some back and forth, the old man agreed to sell the broken dirt bike for just $50. It was all the money Jake had left in the world. Jake rode his bicycle 5 miles into town, pulled out his last crumpled bills, and paid the man who came to meet him. When he returned to the garage pushing the heavy bike, a couple of local guys standing nearby started laughing. $50 on that piece of junk. One of them shouted, "You just threw your last money away, buddy." Their words stung, but Jake stayed quiet and pushed the bike inside. That night, as he sat on the cold floor staring at the silent machine, something inside him shifted. For the first time in months, he felt a small spark of purpose. He didn't know if he could fix it, but he knew he had to try. The dirt bike wasn't just metal and rust anymore. It felt like his last chance. Still, doubt crept in as he looked at all the broken parts. What if this was another mistake? What if he was only making things worse for himself? Jake lay down on his sleeping bag, eyes fixed on the bike in the dim light. Outside, the rain grew heavier. He had no idea that this $50 broken dirt bike was about to pull him out of the darkness and set him on a path he never expected. But for now, the real work was just beginning, and the road ahead looked anything but easy. The rain stopped by morning, but the garage still felt damp and cold. Jake stared at the rusted dirt bike for a long time before he decided to begin. He had almost no tools and no money left for parts. Still, he refused to quit before even starting. He spent the first day just cleaning every inch of the bike with an old rag and some water from a nearby hose. As the dirt came off, he saw how badly damaged it really was. Bent handlebars, cracked plastics, and an engine that would not turn over no matter how hard he tried. Jake walked miles to the nearest junkyard every afternoon. He searched through piles of old metal, looking for anything he could use. Sometimes he found a useful bolt or a piece of chain. Other times he came back empty-handed and tired. At night he sat on the garage floor with his cracked phone, watching free YouTube videos on basic motorcycle repair. The videos played with poor signal, but he wrote down every step in a small notebook using a borrowed pen. Days turned into weeks. His hands became rough and covered with grease. He straightened the bent frame using a heavy pipe he found behind the garage. He cleaned the carburetor with old gasoline from a discarded can and adjusted the chain with whatever tools were lying around. Every small success felt huge. One evening the spark plug finally fired after many attempts, and the engine gave a weak cough. Jake's heart jumped with hope, but the bike died again right away. The people in town still whispered when they saw him pushing the bike around or riding his old bicycle to find parts. His high school rival, Tyler, who now ran a successful auto shop in town, drove by one day and laughed loudly. "Still playing with that $50 toy, Jake? You'll never get that thing running properly." The words hurt, but they also pushed Jake harder. As the work continued, Jake started feeling different. He woke up earlier each day with a clear purpose. The abandoned garage slowly changed from a sad sleeping place into a small workshop. He organized tools on a wooden shelf he built himself. For the first time in many months, he slept better at night, even on the hard floor. The dirt bike was becoming more than just a machine. It was teaching him patience and giving him back a piece of his lost confidence. But deep down, doubt still lingered. Some nights the bike refused to start, no matter what he did. Jake would sit in silence, wondering if he was wasting his time and only setting himself up for another painful failure. The engine remained unpredictable, and he knew one big problem could end everything. Still, he kept going, turning wrenches late into the night under a single hanging bulb. Little did Jake realize that his quiet determination was already catching the attention of a few kind people in town. Small jobs started coming his way. Delivering groceries, on his bicycle, or helping an old farmer move some equipment. Each dollar he earned went straight back into the bike. The $50 broken dirt bike was slowly coming back to life, and with it something inside Jake was waking up too. Yet the biggest test was still far ahead, and the road to proving everyone wrong looked steeper than ever. Weeks of hard work finally paid off one rainy evening. Jake stood inside the garage, covered in grease, his heart pounding with nervous hope. He turned the key, pulled the choke just right, and kicked the starter one more time. Suddenly, the old dirt bike roared to life with a loud, rough sound that echoed through the empty garage. Black smoke came out at first, but then the engine settled into a steady rumble. Jake couldn't believe it. He let out a shout of pure joy and rode the bike slowly around the open space inside the garage. For the first time in months, he felt real pride swelling in his chest. That small victory changed everything. The next day, Jake started using the dirt bike for small jobs around Mill Creek. He delivered groceries for the local store, ran errands for elderly neighbors, and helped farmers carry light tools and supplies between fields. People who once laughed at him began to notice the change. Mrs. Harper, an old widow, smiled when Jake brought her medicine on time and said, "You're a good boy, Jake. I'm glad you didn't give up." Each small job brought in a few dollars, which he used to buy better fuel, new spark plugs and a few missing parts. The abandoned garage slowly transformed. Jake fixed a broken window, cleared more space, and turned one corner into a proper workbench. He slept better now and even started eating regular meals again. The dirt bike was no longer just a rusty machine. It had become his partner, his therapy, and his quiet way of fighting back against rock bottom. Every evening after work, he spent time fine-tuning the engine and making small improvements with whatever he could find. But not everyone was happy for him. Tyler, his old high school rival, drove past one afternoon while Jake was loading the bike with supplies. Tyler stopped and smirked. "Nice toy, Jake. Too bad it won't last. When it breaks down for good, don't come crying to my shop." His mocking words created a heavy feeling in Jake's stomach. He knew Tyler was successful now, with a big garage and fancy tools, while he was still struggling in an abandoned building. Despite the doubts and the fear of failure, Jake kept pushing forward. He began saving every extra dollar, dreaming quietly of entering the upcoming county dirt bike race at the fairgrounds. The prize was $5,000, enough money to finally get back on his feet, and maybe even rent a small place. The idea both excited and scared him. What if the bike failed during the race? What if he embarrassed himself in front of the whole town again? As the days passed, more people in Mill Creek started talking about Jake and his $50 miracle bike. Some offered him old parts for free. Others simply gave him encouraging words. Jake felt a new kind of hope growing inside him, but he also felt the pressure building. The race was only 3 weeks away, and his bike was still far from perfect. Late at night, he would lie awake, listening to the quiet tick of the cooling engine, wondering if he was brave enough to take the biggest risk of his life. The suspense grew with every practice run. The bike ran better each day, yet it still had moments where it coughed and lost power without warning. Jake knew one mistake could destroy all his progress. Still, something deep inside told him this was his chance, his one opportunity to prove to himself and everyone else that he was not finished yet. The broken dirt bike had already changed his days, but the real test was coming fast, and the outcome remained uncertain. The news spread quickly through Mill Creek. The county fair had announced its annual dirt bike race with a $5,000 first prize. Jake heard about it while delivering groceries and felt his heart race. This could be the chance he needed to turn his life around. That same evening, he made up his mind. He would enter the race with his $50 dirt bike. The decision filled him with both excitement and heavy pressure. The very next day, Jake started serious practice on the old trails behind the fairgrounds. The bike ran better than before, but it was still far from reliable. During one practice run, the engine suddenly cut out in the middle of a sharp turn, nearly throwing him off. Jake fixed it on the spot with shaking hands, knowing that the same thing could happen during the real race. Every practice session brought new problems: a loose chain, overheating, or sudden power loss. Fixing them took all his patience and the little money he had saved. Tyler, his old rival, found out about Jake's plan and made sure everyone in town heard about it. He stood outside his clean, modern garage and laughed loudly in front of a group of people. "Jake thinks he can race against real bikes with that piece of junk? He won't even finish the first lap. I'll bet anyone $20 he quits before the finish line." His words spread fast and made Jake feel small again. Some people started looking at Jake with pity instead of encouragement. Despite the doubt and growing suspense, Jake refused to back down. He woke up before sunrise every day to practice. He adjusted the bike late into the night, trying new modifications with parts he found or bought cheaply. One evening, after another breakdown, he sat on the garage floor feeling completely defeated. The bike was still unpredictable, and the race was now only 10 days away. He wondered if Tyler was right. Maybe he was just setting himself up for public embarrassment once more. But something kept pushing him forward. The memory of his sister's tight hug and her worried eyes gave him strength. He wanted to show Mia and himself that he could still fight. Slowly, a few kind locals began to support him quietly. An old farmer gave him a better set of tires, and the lady from the grocery store sometimes brought him food while he worked. These small kindnesses helped, but the pressure kept building. As race day got closer, the tension inside Jake grew stronger. During his final practice run, the bike suddenly started smoking heavily halfway through the trail. Jake stopped, heart pounding, and worked desperately to fix it before dark. He knew one more major failure could end everything. Lying in his sleeping bag that night, he stared at the ceiling of the garage, unable to sleep. The $50 dirt bike had already brought him this far, but now it felt like everything was riding on a knife's edge. The biggest test of his life was coming, and no one, not even Jake, knew if he would rise or fall when the starting flag dropped. Race day arrived under a bright Ohio sky. The fairgrounds were packed with people, loud engines, and the smell of fuel and excitement. Jake pushed his old dirt bike to the starting line, heart hammering in his chest. His bike looked rough next to the shiny, expensive machines around him. Tyler stood nearby with his polished new bike, smirking as he passed. "Good luck, garage boy. Try not to embarrass yourself too much," he said loudly enough for others to hear. Jake stayed quiet, gripping the handlebars tightly. When the starting flag dropped, the bikes roared forward in a cloud of dust. Jake got a decent start, but quickly fell behind the faster riders. The first lap was brutal. His $50 bike shook violently on the rough track, and the engine screamed under pressure. Twice it nearly cut out on sharp jumps, forcing Jake to fight hard to keep it running. Sweat poured down his face as he pushed through every turn, refusing to quit even when riders passed him one after another. In the middle of the second lap, disaster almost struck. The bike suddenly lost power on a steep hill. Jake thought it was over. The crowd groaned as he coasted to the side. With seconds ticking by, he jumped off, made a quick adjustment to the carburetor with dirty hands, and kicked the starter desperately. The engine coughed once, twice, then roared back to life. Jake leaped back on and rejoined the race, now even further behind. His arms burned and his legs ached, but a fierce determination kept him going. Lap after lap, something surprising happened. Jake's deep knowledge of his bike, every weak spot and every strength he had, fixed himself, started to show. He took smarter lines through the corners and conserved the engine. Where others pushed too hard, slowly he began overtaking tired riders. The crowd noticed the underdog on the old bike and started cheering louder each time he passed someone. Tyler, who had been leading comfortably, glanced back and looked shocked to see Jake closing the gap. On the final lap, the tension reached its peak. Jake was now running in fourth place, but his bike began smoking badly again. The engine temperature climbed dangerously high. Every bump felt like it could be the last. Jake's mind raced with fear. If the bike died now, all his work would mean nothing. He leaned forward, whispering encouragement to the machine as if it could hear him. "Come on, just a little more. We've come too far." In the last straight section, 2 riders ahead made mistakes and slowed down. Jake pushed everything he had left. His arms shook from exhaustion, but he crossed the finish line in second place. The crowd erupted in loud cheers. Jake slowed the bike to a stop, breathing heavily, hardly believing what had just happened. He had not won first place, but he had beaten many expensive bikes and proved everyone wrong, especially Tyler, who finished third and looked furious. As Jake stood beside his smoking but still running dirt bike, the realization hit him hard. This broken machine had carried him through the toughest moments of his life. The cheers continued as Jake caught his breath near the finish line. Local reporters and people from town quickly surrounded him, asking questions about the $50 miracle bike. Tyler walked past without saying a word, his face red with embarrassment. For the first time in a long while, Jake felt truly proud of himself. He had come in second and won $2,000, more money than he had seen in months. Later that evening, as the fair lights glowed around him, an old truck pulled up. It was Mr. Harlan, the old man who had sold him the dirt bike for $50. He stepped out slowly and looked at the bike with surprised eyes. "Son, I never thought this old thing had any life left in it," he said. "You proved me wrong. You proved a lot of people wrong today." After a short talk, Mr. Harlan made an offer that changed everything. He told Jake he could use the entire abandoned garage for free to start. His own small dirt bike repair and custom shop. The old man even offered to help with paperwork and basic tools. Jake stood there speechless, Tears welled up in his eyes as he shook Mr. Harlan's hand. The garage that had once been his shelter for lonely nights was now going to be the place where he built a new future. 2 days later, his sister Mia drove back into town. When she saw Jake standing proudly in front of the garage with a fresh sign that read, "Jake's Bike Works," she ran straight to him. Without a word, she gave him the strongest, warmest hug yet. This time, the hug was filled with joy and pride instead of worry. Mia held him tight, tears streaming down her face. "I knew you could do it," she whispered. "You never gave up." Jake hugged her back just as strongly, feeling the weight of the past months finally lifting. He looked over her shoulder at the restored dirt bike parked proudly near the garage door. That $50 broken machine had not only helped him win prize money, it had restored his confidence, brought kindness back into his life, and opened a door to a real future. As the sun set over Mill Creek, Jake realized the most important truth. Sometimes the things that look completely broken can become the very things that fix your entire life. He was no longer the man sleeping in an abandoned garage. He was now a man with purpose, a workshop of his own, and hope for tomorrow. The journey had been hard, but it had led him exactly where he needed to be. What do you think? Have you ever had one small thing completely change your life? Tell me in the comments below. If you liked Jake's story, hit that like button, subscribe for more inspiring real-life stories, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new one.